Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Abhineet Shukla, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. World's longest railway platform dedicated to the nation by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Hubli in Karnataka. A high-level Indian parliamentary delegation attends the 146th Inter-Parliamentary Assembly in Bahrain. Bhutan Minister for Home and Cultural Affairs Ugyen Dorji says India holding the G20 presidency is a matter of pride for the whole of South Asia. Saudi Space Commission delegation visits India to discuss space cooperation. Guwahati to hold the first Psi-20 senior officers meeting on the theme Blue Economy and Responsible Artificial Intelligence. And in cricket, Virat Kohli hits 28th Test century as India takes 91-run first innings lead against Australia in Ahmedabad Test. A parliamentary delegation from India led by Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla is attending the 146th Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, that is IPU, in Manama, Bahrain from March 11th to 15th. Upon arrival in Bahrain, the delegation was welcomed by Bahraini officials and Indian Ambassador Piyush Srivastava at the airport. During the visit, Speaker Birla met with IPU President Duarte Pacheco and Bahraini Speaker Fauzia Zainal to discuss various issues of mutual interest and cooperation. The delegation participated in the opening ceremony of the IPU Assembly and engaged in various meetings and debates on topics such as human rights, climate change, gender equality and terrorism. Mr. Birla addressed the general debate of the IPU Assembly on the theme of parliamentary leadership for more effective multilateralism that delivers peace and sustainable development for the people and planet. He highlighted India's achievements in combating COVID-19, promoting renewable energy, empowering women and strengthening democracy. On the sidelines, Speaker Birla also addressed members of the Indian diaspora in Bahrain, emphasizing the importance of their contribution in strengthening the relationship between India and Bahrain. He also said the relations between the countries is a relationship based on human sensibilities and cultural values, which have been strengthened by the hard work, loyalty, diligence and dedication of the Indian diaspora. Indian-Bahrain relations have acquired new dimensions in the last few years. He further highlighted the increase in cooperation between the two countries in areas such as IT, fintech and renewable energy. During the visit, the speaker also met with Dr. Shireen Sharmeen Chaudhry, Speaker of Jatiya Sangsad of Bangladesh, to discuss strengthening parliamentary cooperation and expanding trade and economic relations between the two countries. The IPU is a global organization of national parliaments that promotes democracy, peace and cooperation. The Indian presence at the IPU Assembly is expected to strengthen bilateral relations between India and Bahrain and showcase India's role as a responsible global partner. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Sunday dedicated to the nation various projects worth 520 crore rupees under the Smart City program in the twin cities of Hubli-Dharwad in Karnataka. These include new campus of IIT Dharwad, developed at the cost of 850 crore rupees, world's longest railway platform in Hubli station, electrification of Hospet Hubli-Tinai Ghat section and upgraded Hosapet section project. Also, a foundation stone was laid for Jayadev Hospital and Research Center in Hubli. Mr. Modi said, in the last 9 years, the number of AIIMS has gone up by 3 times in the country. Before 2014, there were just 360 medical colleges, and in just 9 years, 250 new medical colleges have come up. The number of IIMs and IITs have gone up. The Prime Minister said, the national highways have seen 55% growth, villages are now provided housing, electricity, toilets, roads, tap water, good hospitals and schools. Broadband penetration has increased and internet prices have remained low. PM Gati Shakti Master Plan has resulted in rapid execution of infrastructure projects. Bhutan Minister for Home and Cultural Affairs Ugyen Dorji said that India holding the G20 presidency is a matter of pride for the whole of South Asia, including Bhutan. The minister made the remarks while inaugurating the cultural evening on the eve of the 4th Y20 consultation meeting in Pune. Y20 is a forum for youth from all G20 member countries to hold dialogue over various issues. India and Bhutan share a special bilateral relationship. Bhutan has the most significant share of the allocated budget for the Ministry of External Affairs under grants and loans to foreign governments. Bhutan under the budgetary plans will receive 2,400.58 crore rupees, out of which 1,632.24 crore rupees will be a grant and 768.34 crore rupees will be a part of a loan. Bhutan will receive financial assistance from India for a number of development projects in the fields of health, digitization and other sectors. The first Supreme Audit Institution 20, that is SAI 20 Senior Officers Meeting, that is SOM, will begin in Guwahati on Monday with the themes Blue Economy and Responsible Artificial Intelligence. The SAI 20 is aimed at bringing together an ecosystem wherein SAIs are active partners in governance, promoting transparency and accountability. The delegates from G20 member countries, guest countries and other international organizations would attend the SAI 20 event. SAIs of Australia, Brazil, Egypt, Indonesia, Oman, the Republic of Korea, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey and UAE will be participating in person. The Consulate General of India, Dubai, marked the International Women's Week by conducting a series of events aimed at promoting women's health and financial management. The outreach program, which took place on March 8th and 12th, saw the consulate team up with several organizations including Indian People's Forum, Dabur International, Lulu Group and NMKP. At various locations in Dubai and Northern Emirates, including Dulsco Labour Camp, EFS Camp and STS Group Camp, women frontline workers were provided with feminine hygiene products and dry ration. Additionally, awareness sessions were held to educate women on the importance of maintaining good health and managing finances effectively. Consul Bijinder Singh from the Consulate General of India delivered a speech on the services provided by the Consulate and the impact of International Women's Day campaigns on empowering women globally. A high-level delegation from the Saudi Space Commission, led by CEO Dr. Mohammed Saud Al Tamimi, recently visited India from March 6th to 10th to hold discussions on space cooperation. The delegation engaged in wide-ranging talks with various entities in India, including the Indian Space Research Organization ISRO and Indian companies involved in the space sector such as New Space India Limited and Centum Electronics. During the visit, Dr. Al Tamimi met with S. Somanath, Chairman of ISRO, and visited the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, Thiruvananthapuram, and the U.R. Rao Satellite Center, Bengaluru. The delegation also visited the Indian Institute of Space Sciences and Technology, and a technical team separately visited the National Remote Sensing Center. Space cooperation is an important area of engagement between India and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and this visit is expected to further deepen their cooperation in this field. Chairman of ISRO extended an invitation to Dr. Al Tamimi to attend the G20 Space Economy Leaders Meeting scheduled for July 2023 in Bengaluru. Dr. Al Tamimi also invited the chairman to participate in the Space Economy Forum planned for the end of this year in Saudi Arabia. The visit is seen as a positive step towards strengthening the partnership between the two countries in the space sector. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on resumption of Saudi Arabia-Iran diplomatic ties and its impact on geopolitics. In conversation with Dr. Sheelkant Sharma, former ambassador, is International Affairs Analyst Simran Sodhi, journalist.
Today we are discussing the resumption of talks and dialogue between Iran and Saudi Arabia. In a surprise development, we saw that China acted as the broker, and the two countries, now Iran and Saudi Arabia, have announced that they will soon be reopening their missions and consulates in each other's country. And this is also a very important development which will affect the geopolitics not just of the Middle East but of the world in general. Ambassador Sharma, when you look at what we've seen, Iran, Saudi Arabia coming to this deal, one, how surprised were you at this, and what are the broad implications that you see as a result of this?
It's a pleasant surprise, I would say, because there has been so many problems that have grown between Iran and Saudi Arabia that to be skeptical about, an entente between the two would have been natural. However, in the last 4 or 5 years, there has been separately number of changes and evolution in the Middle Eastern politics that lend some support to Iran and Saudi Arabia coming together. First is Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Crown Prince. He has been trying to diversify relationship of his country with everyone, and he has brought in a totally new outlook to Saudi diplomacy. He wants to be a player, not just be, a client state. So he has been improving relations with generally with China, with Russia. He even played a kind of a role trying to bridge problems between Russia and Ukraine. And then about oil politics, he has actually kept himself away from the American influence. And when the Americans, pressed him to reduce our oil output, he didn't agree and, keep the prices low. He didn't agree. So there is this new Saudi diplomatic profile. Now, Iran is something which is a stumbling block in this profile, because if Saudi Arabia and Iran are at loggerheads, then Saudi Arabia's, ambition are to that extent, there's a shadow on them. Now, looking at Iran, for instance, Iran is now hounded by the break-off of the Iran deal, nuclear deal, and the mounting sanctions. It is also hounded by the human rights fellows about status of women in Iran. And it is also in trouble because of relations going down with the US. Whatever bad relations were there, they are getting worse. And even Europeans are now skeptical about Iran. On the other hand, Iran is going very close because of these reasons to China. And now China has an interest in Iran. China's relationship with Iran is very close. They have done a long-term deal and a strategic partnership. And China also wants to play a role in Saudi Arabia. So China has a problem because Saudi Arabia and Iran, if they are at loggerheads, then China's coming closer to Iran will come in the way of China's coming closer to Saudi Arabia. So there is room for Chinese diplomacy to work them out together. So these are the factors which have actually led to talks between the Iranians and the Saudis. The talks were actually progressing for the last 2 years. They took place in Iraq and in Oman. And finally, the Chinese midwifed this deal, according to which they would open diplomatic relations, which were closed after 2016. 2016 was a low point in their relationship because the Shiite Sheikh was executed in Saudi Arabia despite Iran's protests. And 2019 was another low point when Houthis attacked Saudi with missiles and drones, almost half of Saudi Arabia's oil establishment. So, and Americans blamed Iran for at least witnessing this or being there behind the Houthis. So, these are the factors which led them to think afresh. And Saudi, as far as Iran is concerned, even at the time of the nuclear deal in 2015, the previous Iranian president, Rouhani, had made soft noises about opening up with Saudi Arabia.
So, Ambassador Sharma, as you are pointing out the role of China, and we have, as you've explained, how for China maintaining this relationship with Iran, Saudi Arabia plays into its own advantage. There's a lot of literature that has poured out since then, which is saying that this deal also is an indicator of the global role that China wants to play. That we've seen China's very aggressive rise in the region, in the world. And this deal, a lot of people are saying, is also an indication of China's leader and China's own ambitions, that it wants to now be the world leader and maybe somewhere push America off the pedestal. Would you agree with that analysis?
Chinese ambitions know no bounds. The Xi Jinping wants to walk tall in the world stage. So naturally, Saudi Arabia and Iran being the biggest oil suppliers, Iran's oil is under sanctions when Saudi Arabia produces oil. So China wants to befriend both of them. And as it happens, there is a lot of skepticism about China which has come in the recent years due to Chinese policies. So in Southeast Asia, for instance, there is, in the Indo-Pacific, there is generally considerable skepticism. Europeans are now skeptical about China. Americans are openly saying that China is a fierce competitor. So in this kind of a situation, China is looking for friends. And so far its friends have been, totally gone cases like DPRK and Pakistan. So it is looking for good friends. Now Saudi Arabia is a good friend in the sense that it is a rich country full of resources, and Mohammed bin Sultan, the crown prince, is a forward-looking modern man. And UAE, another country which is close to Saudi Arabia, they also see these things in a positive light. So you find that Chinese role is actually not only appreciated by both Iran and Saudi Arabia, but the Gulf countries also welcome this coming together of, or at least, resumption of diplomatic relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So China, for them, this is a kind of a plus. They have achieved something in this respect, as some kind of a. And China in the past has not been known for diplomacy. It has been always preaching others to do diplomacy. For instance, it has been telling America, Japan, Korea that solve problems in Korean Peninsula and by negotiations. And, it has generally refrained from censoring North Korea. So there it sits on the pedestal and preaches. But for the first time, Wang Yi, their head of diplomacy, is now involved in bringing them together. And you see the picture from Beijing. He's so happy making the two leaders, Shamkhani and his Saudi counterpart, meeting together and having a deal. So this is Chinese.
Ambassador Sharma, yes, Ambassador Sharma, when we see these pictures, as you are pointing out, coming out of Beijing, and we see China being apparently quite happy with the fact that they are the ones who have brokered this deal and that they want to take credit for this. How much do you think is this then a source of worry or concern for India? Because we have also seen that the India-China relationship has had its own share of stress and strain over the last few years. And India is having to deal with a more aggressive China, especially when we look at the border situation. So how this be a concern for India that China is now, stepping into this role, and it seems that China is now wanting to increase its own global standing. How does it play out for India?
As far as the Middle East is concerned, India has established very good relations with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, and with the Gulf countries. So if China tries to sully these relations, it might be counterproductive, because these countries, when they cannot even take Pakistan's advice about relations with India, how will they take China's advice? So I think Chinese will have to be careful not to meddle in India's relationship with the Arab world. As far as Iran is concerned, Chinese have been hard at it for a long time. We know how they've been trying to, for instance, come in the way of Chabahar project. They didn't like India's close relationship with Iran when we were developing the Chabahar project and getting a separate independent line with the pipeline, So Chinese were not very much for it. And they have been also developing the project very close to where we are doing in Chabahar. So Chinese have been working on Iran on this. But both Iran and Saudi Arabia are big countries, they have had history, and Saudi Arabia wants to be a major Middle East player. And Iran always has been, they have their ambitions. So they wouldn't like to play under Chinese influence to, spoil relations with India. I don't think. When they are both trying to, when Saudi Arabia is trying to come out of the American orbit, how can they get into another orbit? And culturally also, Americans today, if you see a picture of Riyadh, it's all built up by American companies, and the close bond between Saudi royalty and the members of the Saudi elite with the American companies is very strong. They oil installations, defense. So for Saudi Arabia, it is not that they are going to leave America. And White House has also said, actually Kirby, the defense Pentagon's spokesman, has said that Saudis have kept the Americans informed about it. So Americans were in the know, but they were not playing any role in this. Naturally, Americans can't play any role because their relationship with Iran is in a very bad way. And that relationship is going south because both Russia and China, who were partners to the nuclear deal, have now become very adverse to American interests in the Middle East. So both are counseling the states in the Middle East against America. And Iran is the first to fall because Iran is facing the brunt of sanctions.
So we also see that this truce which has been reached between Iran and Saudi Arabia, as we have discussed, is likely to have repercussions and affect geopolitics not only of the Middle East but of the world. And in the coming days, we will have more instances and more examples of how this is working out. With these comments, we bring today's discussion to an end. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. The month of March is filled with a plethora of G20 events under India's presidency. Let's have a bird's eye view of all the events scheduled for the month of March that include some prominent meets like the G20 Sherpa meet and the International Financial Architecture meet as well.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future. Second Education Working Group meeting from 15th to 17th of March in Amritsar. 80 delegates from 30 countries and international organizations had participated in the first G20 Education Working Group meeting in Chennai. Best practices in tech-related education in member countries were discussed in a major way. Now, to take the discussions forward, the delegates will meet in Amritsar, Punjab, for the second Education Working Group meeting in March. Second Joint Finance Health Task Force virtual meeting on 20th of March. The second Joint Finance Health Task Force meeting will be held in virtual mode on 20th of March under the Finance SEM track. The first meeting on December 20th was attended by finance and health representatives from G20 members, invited countries, as well as international organizations. The Bali Leaders Declaration 2022 extended the mandate of this task force to continue the collaborations between finance and health ministries for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. Second Sustainable Finance Working Group meeting from 21st to 23rd March at Udaipur. Rajasthan's City of Lakes. Udaipur is all set to welcome the G20 delegates for second Sustainable Finance Working Group meeting from March 21st to 23rd. The Sustainable Finance Working Group will develop a G20 Sustainable Finance Technical Assistance Action Plan and aims to mobilize sustainable finance to help ensure global growth and stability and promote the transition towards greener, more resilient and inclusive societies and economies. Second Framework Working Group meeting on 24th and 25th March, Chennai. The second Framework Working Group meeting under the finance track of India's G20 presidency will be held in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Framework Working Group discusses global macroeconomic issues of current relevance, monitoring of global risks and uncertainties, and possible areas of policy coordination aimed at promoting strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth across the G20. Second Environment and Climate Working Group meeting from 27th to 29th March at Gandhinagar. Gujarat's Gandhinagar is all set to welcome G20 delegates for the second Environment and Climate Working Group meeting under the Sherpa track from March 27th to 29th. All G20 countries showed interest and commitment to constructively work towards the objective of the three priority areas: arresting land degradation, accelerating ecosystem restoration and enriching biodiversity, promoting a sustainable and climate-resilient blue economy, encouraging resource efficiency and circular economy during the first meeting. Second Infrastructure Working Group meeting on 28th and 29th of March at Visakhapatnam. 64 delegates from 18 member countries attended the first G20 Infrastructure Working Group meeting in Pune in January. The second meeting of this working group under the finance track will be held in Visakhapatnam, a port city and the industrial center of Andhra Pradesh. First Trade and Investment Working Group meeting from 28th to 30th of March in Mumbai. Established in 2016, the Trade and Investment Working Group to hold its first meeting under India's G20 presidency in March in India's financial capital, Mumbai. It focuses on subjects including strengthening the G20 trade and investment mechanism, promoting global trade growth, supporting the multilateral trading system, promoting global investment policy cooperation and coordination, and promoting inclusive and coordinated global value chains. Second Agriculture Working Group meeting from 29th to 31st of March at Chandigarh. The Agriculture Working Group under the Sherpa track held its first meeting, the Agriculture Deputies meeting at Indore in Madhya Pradesh in February. The need to have greater convergence and collaboration among the G20 member countries on agricultural research and development aspects was the key focus. Important discussions on other G20 agricultural issues can be expected during the meeting in Chandigarh. Second International Financial Architecture Working Group meeting on 30th and 31st of March in Paris. Under the G20 finance track, the International Financial Architecture Working Group is one of the important work streams with a focus on strengthening international financial architecture. It also aims to address multiple challenges faced by vulnerable countries. The first meeting was held in Chandigarh, a city planned by famous French architect Le Corbusier, and the second meeting of this working group will be held in Paris, a quintessential global city. First Disaster Management Working Group meeting on 30th March to 1st April at Gandhinagar. First meeting of the Disaster Management Working Group is expected in Gandhinagar, the capital of Gujarat and one of the best planned cities in India. Second Sherpa meeting from 30th of March to 2nd of April at Kumarakom. Known for picturesque backwaters, Kumarakom in Kerala is getting ready to host the G20 Sherpas from March 30th to 2nd of April. This will be the second G20 Sherpa meeting. The first Sherpa meeting in Udaipur offered the delegates a unique Indian experience through cultural performances, art exhibitions and excursions. Anuja Kumar for World News.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future.
The 95th Academy Awards ceremony, also called Oscars, is set to take place in Los Angeles and it will be aired on Monday morning in India. Oscars this time will be extra special for the Indian audience as the country has been nominated in as many as 3 categories including Best Original Song, where RRR's Natu Natu will compete with other global hits. In the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, police busted a hideout of illicit arms and ammunition in Hagnikot area of Vilgam in Kupwara district on Sunday. According to the police, on the basis of specific inputs, a search operation was launched in Shalnar Hagnikot area, during which a huge cache of arms and ammunition were recovered from a hideout. A case under relevant sections of law has been registered at Police Station Vilgam and further investigation is on. In cricket, India were all out for 571 in their first innings against Australia on day 4 of the final test of the Border Gavaskar Trophy in Ahmedabad. India resumed their first innings at the overnight score of 289 for 3 this morning. Australia were 3-0 in their second innings at stumps on day 4. They scored 480 in their first innings. A quick look at the headlines once again. World's longest railway platform dedicated to the nation by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Hubli in Karnataka. A high-level Indian parliamentary delegation attends the 146th Inter-Parliamentary Assembly in Bahrain. Bhutan Minister for Home and Cultural Affairs Ugyen Dorji says India holding the G20 presidency is a matter for pride for the whole of South Asia. Saudi Space Commission delegation visits India to discuss space cooperation. Guwahati to hold the first Psi-20 senior officers meeting on the theme Blue Economy and Responsible Artificial Intelligence. And in cricket, Virat Kohli hits 28th Test century as India takes 91-run first innings lead against Australia in Ahmedabad Test. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from Serbia. And And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.